And then comes the breaking point, the cinematic moment where everything caves in. You are alone in your room, lights dim, the hum of the outside world buzzing faintly through thin walls. But inside, silence screams. The phone glows with messages you don't answer. The mirror stares back with eyes you barely recognize. You sit still, staring into the void, feeling the crushing weight of being unseen, unheard, misunderstood. It feels as if your identity itself has shattered into pieces, scattered across a floor no one else notices. Outside, the world moves on with noise and laughter. Inside, you drown in silence. That is the collapse, not one loud explosion, but the slow, invisible implosion of the self. But here is the truth, hidden within the darkness. Collapse is not the end. It is the moment before rebirth. The self breaks so the false layers can fall away. The silence you fear is the space where a truer voice begins to rise. You are not broken. You are breaking free from what was never you. They will love you for fitting in, but hate you for standing out. And this is the bitter paradox that has followed you all your life. The applause you chased, the approval you bled for, was never love. It was conditional acceptance. They didn't love your soul. They loved the mask, the smile you wore when you wanted to scream, the silence you kept when you longed to speak. What they embraced was not you, but the version of you that kept them comfortable. And the day you broke character, their love vanished like smoke. That is not love. That is control dressed as affection. Jung taught that individuation is the breaking away from false attachments, the painful ripping apart of the mask from the face. To individuate is to realize that you were never meant to belong to the collective. The collective survives by sameness. The soul survives by truth. Individuation asks you to walk away from counterfeit connections and into the fire of authenticity. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels like abandonment. But what you are losing is not love. It is an illusion. When Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," he revealed the secret. You must let go of the crowd's approval to discover your own. Their love was for your persona. Your task is to love the self behind it, and then comes the liberation. The inner voice finally speaks with clarity. They never loved me. They loved their reflection in me. It is bittersweet, like stepping out of a warm lie into a cold truth. But that cold truth is clean. It is honest. It is the soil where real love can one day grow. Not love that demands you shrink, but love that expands as you expand. They never loved your truth, but you can. And that love will set you free. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Jung's truth strikes like lightning. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. The pain you carried, the rejection you endured, the loneliness that hollowed you out, these were not punishments. They were invitations. Invitations to meet the parts of yourself you tried to bury. The wounds you thought disqualified you are the very soil where strength is born. Individuation is not about polishing the light and hiding the dark. It is about weaving them together. When you accept that you are both brilliance and wound, both wisdom and fear, both love and rage, you stop fighting yourself. Strength does not come from perfection. It comes from wholeness. And this wholeness reshapes how you move through the world. Empowerment is not a slogan. It is a choice repeated every day. It is refusing to dumb down your thoughts just to fit into conversations that starve your soul. It is choosing to create something meaningful even when no one applauds, because truth itself is reward enough. It is walking away from shallow approval and standing firmly in depth, even if it costs you belonging. Picture yourself at work, in a room where silence is safer, but you speak anyway. You raise the question no one dares to ask. There may be glances, there may be whispers, but inside you feel a quiet power. You did not betray yourself. That is empowerment, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by it. Then comes the moment of rebirth. Imagine it as fire burning through old chains, a storm tearing down the fragile shelter of conformity. At first it feels destructive. Everything you leaned on collapses. But beneath the ashes, something truer rises. You walk through the storm scarred, yes, but also unbreakable. The opinions that once caged you no longer hold the same weight. The alienation that once crushed you now becomes proof of your freedom. You are no longer begging the world to see you. You see yourself. And that sight is liberation. Your shadow is not your prison. It is your power. Face it, and you are reborn in fire. Freedom is the privilege of the strong. These words echo with a quiet certainty, because true freedom is not handed to you. It is claimed the moment you stop begging for the world's approval. You spent years chasing applause, trimming your truth into shapes that would be accepted. You bent yourself to fit into rooms that never wanted your soul. And each time you did, you felt the chain tighten around your spirit. The paradox of freedom is this: you only find it when you no longer need anyone else to grant it. It comes when you stop waiting for permission, when you stand alone and realize your worth was never in their hands. And from this realization, peace rises. Not the shallow calm of avoiding conflict, but the deep serenity of standing in your own truth. Outer chaos will never vanish. The noise, the arguments, the endless distractions of the collective will always be there. But you begin to notice that their storm does not shake you anymore. Because you are rooted in self-respect. You no longer measure your intelligence by likes, by applause, by whether the crowd understands. You measure it by your own inner stillness, the quiet certainty that your truth matters even if no one listens. This is the gift intelligence offers when it is no longer twisted into a curse. It becomes a sanctuary within you, a space where you no longer need to fight, where you can simply be. Picture it. You are in the same world, with the same noise, but now you carry silence inside. A silence that cannot be broken by their mockery. A silence that cannot be stolen by their distractions. You walk through the crowd like a mountain walks through the wind, untouched, unshaken. That is the moment you realize intelligence is not a burden, but a flame. It may not always be seen, it may not always be applauded, but it lights your path. And when you choose peace over chaos, that flame becomes eternal. Your gift was never the approval of the world. It is the light of your own truth, shining even in silence. The fool is always certain, the wise man always doubts. These words echo like thunder, yet in the modern world, thunder is drowned out by the noise of applause for empty voices. Look around you. Mediocrity is crowned as brilliance. Noise is rewarded as truth. The shallow are celebrated, while the deep are buried in silence. You have felt it, this betrayal of human potential. A world that claims to honor intelligence but bows down to distraction. A culture that confuses popularity with wisdom. The painful truth is this: we live in a time where the crowd doesn't seek light, it seeks spectacle. And the more absurd, the louder, the more hollow, it thrives. Intelligence, subtle and careful, moves like a whisper through a storm. But stupidity screams, and the masses listen. Jung once said, "The larger the crowd, the more negligible the individual." And so it is, the collective drowns the voice of the soul. Carl Jung saw the danger long before our screens magnified it. He spoke of the unconscious mass mind, the force that pulls you downward into conformity, away from individuation. To individuate is to stand apart, to face the loneliness of truth. But the collective rewards sameness. It rewards the mask, the persona, the one who reflects its own shallow desires. Intelligence demands courage, but the crowd punishes courage because it threatens comfort. So the wise are cast as outsiders, while the unthinking are crowned heroes of the hour. Look at the world of viral fame. A teenager dances in front of a camera and is worshipped by millions. A prank, a shallow joke, an empty outrage. These become the banners of the age. And yet a quiet voice, speaking of depth, of truth, of self-awareness, goes unheard. The algorithms of our age are sculpted not for intelligence, but for addiction, not for awakening, but for distraction. The one who entertains is fed, the one who enlightens is starved. And so, intelligence walks alone, punished by invisibility, while stupidity feasts on applause. This is the painful paradox you must face. The world does not value truth as much as it values comfort. It does not reward intelligence as much as it rewards the illusion of belonging. And unless you see through this, you will break yourself trying to gain love from a crowd that cannot give it. Your wisdom is not weakness. Your silence is not emptiness. Your truth is not a curse, it is your crown. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Jung's words cut deep, because fate today is dressed as fairness, wrapped in illusions. You were told since childhood that the world is fair, that merit is rewarded, that effort leads to success. But look closely. The ones who rise are not always the most intelligent, not always the most hardworking. They are the most compliant. They bend to the current instead of carving their own path. The illusion of meritocracy is seductive because it keeps you obedient. It whispers, work harder, follow the rules, and your day will come. Yet how many brilliant voices have been silenced because they questioned the system? How many innovators buried while flatterers rose? In a world built on appearances, obedience is safer than truth. The system does not reward depth. It rewards predictability. The crowd loves to say it loves you, but that love is conditional. It is not love for who you are, but for how well you mirror them. Jung warned that what people love in others is often their own projection. The masses do not love intelligence, because intelligence reveals their shadow. They love the reflection of their own mediocrity, the comfort of sameness. If you laugh at the same shallow jokes, nod at the same hollow opinions, you are one of us. Step outside, speak too deeply, and the false love turns to scorn. Think of the child in school who asked questions the teacher couldn't answer. Mocked not because he was wrong, but because he was different. Society does not embrace the individual, it embraces the mask. The persona is fed, the soul is starved. The applause is not for truth, but for conformity disguised as connection. And when this false love is too thin to cover the hunger of your soul, distraction steps in. Endless entertainment, shallow pleasures, the scrolling abyss of screens, all crafted to numb you. They whisper, you are connected, you are seen, you are loved, while in truth, you are drowning in noise. The modern world offers you dopamine instead of meaning, applause instead of intimacy, validation instead of truth. But the price is your depth. Every shallow approval is a chain, keeping you from silence, from reflection, from the discomfort that leads to wisdom. You feel the emptiness after the binge, the hollow silence after the distraction fades. This is the soul's cry against illusions. You are not meant to live in the prison of meritocracy's lie, the false love of the crowd, or the empty comfort of distraction. These illusions were never love. They were cages. And now you see them for what they are. Do not confuse applause with love or distraction with meaning. What is real will never demand that you betray yourself. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Jung's warning holds a mirror to the deepest wound. You were taught that being fully yourself is dangerous. From the earliest years, you felt the sting of rejection. Maybe it was in the classroom, where your curiosity was met with rolled eyes. Maybe it was at home, where your thoughts seemed too much. Intelligence isolates because it threatens the fragile comfort of others. As a child, you learned to trade truth for belonging. You laughed when you didn't find it funny. You stayed silent when your soul screamed for answers. That is how wounds begin, when the mind bends itself into a mask to earn the love it deserves. And so, little by little, you suppress your light. Not because you don't know, but because you know too much. Fear of rejection lives in the shadows. Every time you felt mocked for standing out, the shadow whispered, "Hide yourself, shrink, don't risk it." And the crowd, blind in its own insecurity, rewards the shrinking. Jung said, "The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." Intelligence shines a light too strong for most to bear. Instead of facing their own emptiness, people attack the one who reveals it. You became the scapegoat, the mirror they could not stand to look into. Society projects its shame, its fear of inadequacy, onto those who dare to think differently. That projection is not about you. It is about what they cannot face in themselves. Yet the wound inside you interprets it as proof that you are unlovable. And so the cycle repeats. Hide to survive, conform to belong, betray yourself to stay safe. Picture the gifted child in school. He raises his hand, eager, alive with curiosity. The teacher snaps, annoyed. The classmates snicker. He feels the sting of isolation pierce deeper than the joy of knowledge. So he lowers his hand. Day after day, the silence grows heavier. Or, imagine the worker who asks why in a meeting. The manager shifts uncomfortably, peers glance sideways, and soon he is labeled difficult. His question was not wrong, but it threatened the illusion of order. In both stories, the same truth appears. Intelligence exposes, and exposure invites rejection. The wound of rejection whispers louder than the voice of truth. And so choices are shaped not by freedom, but by fear. People cling to stupidity because stupidity feels safe. It never risks being hated. It never risks being exiled. This is the hidden chain. Your wounds make your choices before you do. Until you bring them into light, they rule your life in silence. Intelligence feels dangerous because it stirs the pain of rejection, the sting of projection, the scars of being misunderstood. But once you see the pattern, once you name it, the power begins to shift. You are not your wound. You are the light that reveals it and the courage that heals it. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what happens when the world makes that privilege feel like a curse? When every step toward authenticity is met with punishment, ridicule, or silence? The mind fractures. The heart bends under pressure. This is the collapse that comes when intelligence meets rejection, when the true self collides with the mask you were forced to wear. Jung called it the war between the persona and the soul. The persona keeps you safe, smiling, blending in, playing roles. But the soul is restless, demanding to be seen. And when these two rip against each other, the weight becomes unbearable. You feel like you're splitting in half, pulled between who you are and who the world demands you to be. At first, it looked like sadness. Then it deepens into alienation. You walk through crowded places and feel utterly alone. You sit with friends and notice you are not there at all. A fog settles over your life, turning every moment gray. The laughter of others rings hollow in your ears, while your own silence grows heavier. Sometimes you even turn against yourself, thinking, maybe they are right. Maybe I am broken. This is despair at its rawest, not the absence of hope, but the belief that you yourself are unworthy of it. Jung warned that the deeper the shadow, the greater the danger of self-hatred. And when intelligence makes you different, the shadow grows vast, wrapping around you like chains. You begin to wonder if existing at all was a mistake.